I'm going to be doing some pumpkin spice candied pecans. And I'm not going to do them in the oven. I'm going to do them in the slow cooker. So these are for people who are really busy and don't have time to, you know, candy them and then stick them in the oven and watch the oven and not sure if they're done, etc., etc. So today I'm going to show you a set it and forget it way to do candied pecans. And I'm going to use pumpkin spice, but you could spice them with ginger or lots of different ways to do candied pecans. The flavor is, of course, totally up to you. My mother always used cayenne pepper or a chili spice, and I never liked them because I don't like spicy food. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to need a large bowl, and you're going to need one egg white. We have chickens, so I'm just going to use the egg whites from my chickens. And it doesn't matter, I would say, between a large and an extra large egg, just because we're going to use a lot of pecans and you want to make sure they're all coated. If you just use a small eggs, I would go ahead and use 2 egg whites. So we're going to use brown sugar. If you only have white sugar, I use pure cane sugar, and then a spice. So I've got a 2-pound bag of pecan halves here, and these are organic, and 2 pounds is way too much, so I'll probably make a couple of batches because I give these as gifts. So this is part of my gift bags that I give. So we're going to do 4 cups of pecan halves, and you know, make sure they're decent looking pecans. I would never recommend this recipe if they're all in little pieces, because it's not really going to work. These are a finger food, and so you're going to be able to need to pick them up. Okay. All right, so you're going to want to put your egg white or egg whites, depending if the size of the egg. And we're going to whisk with some vanilla. And you're going to want to use 3 to 2 teaspoons of vanilla. These jars never pour right. It's always down the jar. I hate that. 1, 2, 3. I really wish they would come up with a new way to store vanilla, because you can't pour out of these. It's really bad. Okay. Now we're going to whisk this together. Until it's mostly combined. And then we're going to add our pecans, and 4 cups. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. We're going to sprinkle our sugars over the top. That is the pure cane sugar, half a cup of brown sugar. And I'm going to stop here. I'm going to say something. On my recipes, sometimes I give the measurements and sometimes I don't. It really just depends. If I'm going to be putting a recipe on my blog page, I typically don't go through the measurements. I just show you how I do it. And so the ones that I give you the exact measurements are least likely to be on my blog page. So it just really depends. If I have a lot to do, and it's a big picture thing for me, so if I have a lot to do, I don't give the ingredients and I put it on the blog site. And if I do give the measurements out, then don't expect to see the recipe in the show notes. I have people that ask me how come some of my recipes are on the blog and some of them aren't. It really just depends on the time that it takes to do everything, and I'm sorry I'm inconsistent. It's just I run a business, 2 businesses, along with doing my cooking channel, so I do apologize. I have all the measurements here, so grab a pen and take notes. This will more than likely not be on my blog page and only be captured here on YouTube. So take notes as you're watching the video, or you know, fast forward or rewind. Okay, so I'm going to need 3 teaspoons of cinnamon, or in this case I'm making pumpkin spice ones, so I'm just going to eyeball it. Pumpkin spice. Alright, then you're going to want to mix this up really good. You're going to want to make sure that your sugars aren't clumped together. And that the egg white and the vanilla get really coats all of the pecans. So really the longest part of making this is right here. And if your sugars are clumped, you're gonna have a clump of candy, because, you know, gonna put this in a crock pot. And I've got a liner in my crock pot, but if you want to spray your crock pot down, cool. I don't like to clean the candied part out of my crock pot, so I use a liner, because it does get kind of sticky and kind of gross. But just want to make sure this is really well coated. And one of the things I like to add to this, but I like to do it at the end, like right after I take them out of the crock pot, is I salt them with sea salt. So I love the sweet and salty. I'm a huge fan of sweet and salty, so this really cuts down on your stir time if you were going to do them on the stove. Throw them in the crock pot. You only have to stir them once every 45 minutes. And so 2 stirs really, as opposed to the one on the stove. Okay, they're pretty much combined, so what we're going to do now is get them over in the crock pot. So let's do that. Preheated my crock pot. It's pretty warm, so you're going to want to preheat yours just so that it doesn't, the nuts and the sugar and stuff don't sit in here and get, you know, all gunked up. I just preheat it. And you're going to want to also use 1/4 cup of water. Crock pots that water is not used in them consistently will always have a very short lifespan. I don't know why, but that's just, they work off of a steam situation, and so you always want to make sure you have liquid in your crock pot. I'm going to take my 1/4 cup of water. I'm going to pour it in my bowl with all of the nuts. Give it one last stir. And we're going to get these into the crock pot. And I have an 8-quart crock pot I'm working with here, so it's pretty big. And so really this is just set it and forget it. So we're going to cook these for 2 hours on low. So I'm going to turn this crock pot down to low. And we're going to have it for 2 hours. Within that 2 hours, you're going to want every 40 to 45 minutes, you're going to want to stir this. So maybe set the clock on your phone and just, you know, stir it just a little bit, move them around so that they're not going to be like one big glob of candy, because that sugar's going to heat up. And we'll come back after that 2 hours and we'll see how it's going, if we need to add water or whatever we need to do to make sure that they're nice and loose. We'll go ahead and do that. So our 2 hours is passed, and at the end of the 2 hours I went ahead and added a little bit of water, and I'm just going to stir these up a little bit, get them away from the liner. I've turned the crock pot off, and I'm going to get a baking sheet with some parchment paper, and we're going to pour them out on the parchment paper, and you let them dry for an hour before you serve them or package them or whatever you want to do. Okay, so let me get my baking sheet and parchment paper, and I'll be liner out of the crock pot. And this is going to be really hot, so you don't want a child working with this. But we're going to try to dump it out on some parchment paper. Shake it a little bit. Get all the pecans to drop out. You may have to play with it a little bit to get, because they're stuck. The sugar is, this will burn you if you don't handle it right. What you want to do is get them all on the parchment paper, and you want to start spreading them out. Just spreading them out like this. And we're going to dry them for an hour on here. But before I start drying them out, I'm going to take some Himalayan pink salt. I'm going to dust them. Not too much. You don't want too much salt, but that salt's going to stick on this, on the pecans, and it's just going to be delicious. You'll never regret it. And okay, so all you do is let this dry and serve them up. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's a great holiday addition to all the things that you'll serve. You can put these in a candy dish and bags after they dry, and you can even send them through the mail to your family and friends. So happy holidays, everybody, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Find somebody to bless, and bye, everybody. Have a great holiday.